Do you think rates of mental illness in the retro gaming community are higher than other hobbies? If so, why?
I'm going to take this out of the retro gaming community and just look at gaming in general. I think mental illness in gaming is something that is more apparent, perhaps, than in other hobbies, because gaming for the longest time was seen as a solitary a hobby. It's escapism. It's a way that people cope with depression, with things like, I hate to bring it up, but with things like Columbine, they try to link video games, and then it becomes a talk about mental illness. I believe mental illness is brought up when it comes to stories about gaming and things like that a lot more often. To be specific, in the retro community, Pat and I have actually talked about this more. The more of a collector you are, the more it is possible that, yes, you are suffering from some form of OCD or something like that, depending on how crazy you are about your labels and your collection and things like that. But I think it's the general stigma of gaming in general that brings mental illness or discussions of mental illness within the gaming community more to the forefront. And I also think because of that, it is often talked about more in the gaming community. I have never shied away from talking about it, about my battles with it, about my thoughts on other people who have suffered from it. And I find a lot of people like that too. There is a good support network within the gaming community for it, because I think it's so... the word I'm looking for is not apparent, but because it is discussed. It is more to the forefront. Do I think it's at a higher rate than other hobbies? No, I absolutely don't. I think the problem is obviously there is still a huge stigma associated with mental illness, and in a hobby such as perhaps muscle car collecting or sports card collecting or something like that, it may not be something that is talked about as openly or is focused on as openly, because it's harder to connect stories about a sports card collector to something that may relate to mental illness. I really don't think... You have to understand, people need to understand, mental illness is a real thing, a real problem, and it affects millions of people. There's no way that it's just magically all concentrated into gaming. I think it's just more visible in gaming, due to various reasons.
I think one of there could be extenuating circumstances to people that maybe gravitate towards gaming in general. They may have social anxiety, so it's sort of the insular feeling.
Well, that's why I say it's used as an escape. But yeah. I just
other hobbies. We talk about putting together muscle cars or sports. A lot of those, at least on the forefront, have more social interaction out and about with people.
Sure.
And you can say, yes, you socially interact online. It's not the same.
No, but this is what I'm saying. Like, just like with video games, it's sort of a more obvious avenue to be like, video games have more mental illness because of these things.
I don't think it has more, but I think it could be it could be the home easier. I think it'd be an easier home because of to be a gamer, you don't have to leave your room. You can just live in your room. You can just live online. And there are people that they're already putting in DSM, like mental illness, for people that are always online and can't get offline.
Yeah.
And gaming does not. Gaming feeds into that, unfortunately. I will say this about it. I think you have to separate out collecting versus, I think, gaming in general.
Yes.
We talked about, like I said before, like you said, like OCD with collecting, or people that have maybe superiority complex in the collecting world, and they do it, narcissism about collecting, elitism versus just game playing. So no, it's not horrible. Like I said, I think it can be easier to collect it in a nice, neat package.
Yeah, I guess those are the words I'm looking for. It's an easy target because of certain behaviors that are involved with gaming that can be associated with mental illness. But when you just look at the number of mental illness cases diagnosed, I highly doubt that if the number is higher, it's not statistically significant.